Hello, I'm Christopher Crystal, and today is November 14th. It's Monday, November 14th, 2022. And this is Financial Stockholm, and these are my thoughts on what we're seeing here in the Swedish market and our reflections on it. So over the weekend, we had most of the press was covering some of the Swedish government and the rule changes or proposals from the new incoming government or the recently government voted in government. And they're starting to show cracks in the press anyway about how the government will work and if it will continue to work together. And so one of the deviations was, and this was always the wild card that the Sverigedemokraterna had, is that they were not part of the government and they had only made the Tidöavtalet. They were able to vote with either party that they wanted to, or any party that they wanted to on a particular issue. So if a Socialist Democrat Party had a proposal, they could go with it. And that's exactly what they did. Now, how successful this will be in getting them elected the second time or another time will be interesting, because what they've proposed to do is raise taxes on alcohol and on snus. And this is ironic because both parties, I would say 90% of their constituents, use these products, and probably closer to high 90s for both products. And so the fact that they're going to actually raise the taxes, make it more expensive in this time of high inflation, we're at 11%, and at a time when we're looking at higher cost of living, the electricity costs are very high. This is not a time when you really want to be raising taxes on your voter constituency, especially if your voter constituency is the common man, middle class. So it will be interesting to see how it goes forward. And then, of course, the NATO membership is still being discussed and how to proceed. The demands from Turkey for Sweden to meet the NATO needs are interesting. And then, unfortunately, in Turkey, they had a bombing over the weekend, which I think everybody knows about. But I think this will increase the force compliance for Sweden to joining NATO and turning over citizens that are on Turkey's terror list. So we'll see how that develops. But I think also most of the press this weekend was focused on the U.S. And although the Swedish politicians don't seem to be learning much from it, and the lesson is you have to deliver on what you're promising. And if the voter feels that you're not, or the voter's afraid of what you are promising, they're not going to vote for you. And so when you see the discussions about Trump and so forth, it's immaterial because the effect for Sweden will be minimal. And whether or not Trump is eliminated, either by a prison sentence, or if there's some other way that they're able to maneuver it, or by him just tweeting some, or not, well, he can't tweet anymore, or putting something out there and attacking his own party. It remains to be seen what will happen with him. But there are good examples in Lyndon LaRouche, and there was also the candidate who came from Arizona and was eventually moved out of the presidential candidacy. So what I would say is the big news, what should be the big news that everybody should be talking about, is the FTX scandal. And this is why it's so interesting for Europe is because Germany has had its own problem with this, where they had the Wirecard fraud, and you had a sustainability analyst over at DWS, which is the main retail banking arm for Deutsche Bank in Germany. She was fired as a result of her complaining about greenwashing and the fact that ESG rated funds held this company called Wirecard, and Wirecard was given a rating of B on its ethics. However, it was later, after an audit, moved down to F, and funds like its Deutschland fund removed it from their fund holdings. And eventually this led to the ouster, the greenwashing issue of Suka Varman, who had been at DWS for many, many years, had been a CIO and then the CEO, and was removed over the greenwashing issue. And why this is important in relation to FTX is because FTX, according to information, had a higher rating than ExxonMobil, had a higher ESG rating than Tesla, or had a higher ESG rating than many other firms. And this is because of this charitable capitalism, or whatever it is that they're calling it. And the guy was really just a fraudster. Appears to be very similar to an Epstein type scandal, although initially it looks only like a Bernie Madoff scandal. And he's escaped from custody initially with $2 billion stolen, and effectively bankrupted a company worth about 13 billion. And he's now been apparently apprehended in the Bahamas. But if you look at the parallels and how he was doing this, by sending the money through the Ukraine, and this is where Danske Bank and Swedbank have had problems. And now you see this is happening again. And he was the largest contributor to the Democrat Party last year. He was either the largest or second largest to George Soros. It presents a very troubling issue, not just for the financial sector and the Bitcoins and all the cryptocurrencies, but it also presents a very troubling question for ESG and if they're really actually achieving their goals. And this comes on the back of what happened with COP27, where COP27 is pushing forward natural gas. They're pushing forward, of course, solar and wind. And then where these issues are not being made up, what they've been doing in Germany is pushing forward coal. You had a great book come out this weekend from a former BlackRock talking about the ESG pitfalls, discussing greenwashing and so forth. So those will all be in the notes, but I would say the markets may have rallied initially on the CPI cost coming down, but many of the key components within it have been rising. And so I think most of that rally was based on the fact that you're not going to have political upheaval in the United States. And that's what you could call the good thing with how the elections turned out. It doesn't matter which party you're for, Republican or Democrat, the fact that you're not going to have this massive upheaval or impeachment of a president, I think would be a good thing. And I think speculation about somebody like Donald Trump becoming Speaker of the House are far and overreaching. But the question of whether somebody like Kevin McCarthy becomes the Speaker of the House will be more interesting, because then that means that the Freedom Caucus, which has a lot of members from the Tea Party or former Tea Party, would be in very strong control of what's going on in the House. And so that's been the focus from the Swedish press. I think there should be much more on our own society. We've had a lot of shootings. We've had a lot of burnings of houses over the weekend. We've had several accidents. We've had several cars being found with bomb material equipment inside of them. So we have more of the gangland violence, and we have little of the solution to that, although we are saying we're going to throw criminals who are not Swedish citizens out of the country. So we're still in a process of figuring out what to do after our government has been elected. And we continue to watch, and hopefully we see some positive trends coming here to say that it's a fundamental change, a good time to invest. Otherwise, good luck with investing. And there is always money to be made in the market. And thank you very much.